semdol kake mofaseda.
Welcome to Talking in Stations, a podcast about EVE Online, live on 1800 Universal Time. Matterall from NC's Destructive Influence and the creative director for, I always wonder to say INN or same place. Okay, today we have a very cool show. We have great guests. Get Bliss on for a while.
Matterall,
Mhm.
I think you're fading in and out.
Oh, is my voice fading in and out?
Yeah, like literally even your green light was going on and off like while you were speaking that. So, hey everybody, welcome to the Talking in Stations.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and keep that introduction. Let's go ahead and go in introductions for you guys while I fix my mic. I'll start with in alphabetical order, Carneros.
Good morning. I'm Carneros, CEO of The Bastion.
Dirk.
Hey, what's up? It's Dirk McGurk from Sniggeredly in Pandemic Legion and co-host of the Open Com Show.
Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Newman, I'm operations director from Hard Knocks and CSM 12.
Hey everyone, it's Sister Bliss from The Initiative.
All right. Let's start with Sister Bliss. Show for a while, and we wanted to know a little bit about yourself and The Initiative.
Well, that's a bit of a long story. I can probably condense it into a very short, probably 30, 60 seconds. But yeah, we're 8 years old. We started out in Venel as an NPC-based alliance, and kind of did some stuff up in the north before moving south. And yeah, I mean, we've pretty much been around the map multiple times over the years, trying to keep ourselves into the action and having fun. We tend to be NPC based as much as possible, although every now and again we dip our toes in a bit of SOV and use a bit of that for resources. But yeah, no, we've been on for a long time and still enjoying the game, still enjoying trying to look for progressive, fun things to do and exciting new configs and exciting fights and what have you. And now we are allied with and are members of our friends Goonswarm and others in the Imperium. And yeah, we kind of keep ourselves jumping around different quarters of EVE, looking for action and trying to do as much stuff as we can on our own. And yeah, just generally looking for a good time.
So before Initiative, where did you come from? Like, what were you in?
Well, originally when we started out, we were just on our own in Venel, and this was back literally 8 years ago when White Noise and Tri was still up in that area as well. And we had a brief stint with Northern Coalition, being allied with them. This is the original Northern Coalition, and that didn't turn out to be really the best of partnerships. So we left that coalition and came down south. Really, we'd never really been down south at all, and we came down to Mency, where we were kind of allied with AAA and Atlas, and God, I can't remember them now. Old Russian Alliance, I can't remember their name. So we lived down south for a little while before there was a big war in the south, and then we went on a bit of an adventure and attacked AAA, took Catch, took a bunch of stuff in the south, and fought the Russians for ages, got kicked out, and went to Curse. You know what? I can't remember. We've done so many different things.
I know, it's been a long time. I remember that campaign though. You guys were you were kind of protected by IT Alliance way back then, right?
I can't really remember too much. There was a period, and I can't remember exactly when. We should really write this stuff down in some kind of annual or something.
Everyone should have a historian.
I think there was some collaboration. I think after the first time when we attacked Catch and took Catch off AAA, I think IT were, if I remember rightly, they were down in down in Delva Curious around there at the time, and we had some collaboration with them, doing a few ops here and there. But
I know what happened.
It was a long time ago.
It was. What happened was that they had fully mobilized to come and help you finish off AAA, because PL had actually helped you guys and a few other groups come down and take AAA out of their space, and Red Overlord. and that had all worked. But then PL went away, and they started reclaiming their lane. The Stain Russians started reclaiming that territory back, and then IT Alliance fully mobilized, and then totally disintegrated and fell apart. So that was the end of them. They never really helped out because they never made it there.
I mean, there was great times. I mean, we had some great stuff running with PL for a little while, and we just kind of overextended, and we were just on a roll, just taking space, region after region, and you get to the point where you're on the border of Stain, and you got lots of Stain wagon, kind of just biding their time, waiting to take it all back, and which they did eventually. But some great battles we had there. Good things to look back on.
Yeah. So what's the difference between Initiative and Initiative Mercenaries, or is it the same thing?
It's a different thing, and it's probably changed a little bit over the years, and it kind of goes around in circles. When we originally went south, we ended up with the whole of NC. We didn't need all that space, so it was just a bit of a thing we created. Because I remember, way back when, when I first started playing EVE, it was almost impossible to get into 0-0. It was really a different environment back then. You had to, if you wanted to get into an alliance, you had to have X amount of dreads, and there's this kind of big checklist that you had to tick off. It's completely different nowadays. And I remember how pretty tough it was for a small corporation to get into 0-0. So given we had all this extra space, we just thought, well, let's just spin up an alt alliance and just literally give it for new or smaller corporations. And the kind of setup we gave was just here's some space, you can use it. It's just leverage it for what you want, and hopefully it'll help your corps grow. And fly with us, but there's no massive expectations. And if people wanted to use that just to kind of catch their breath or recover or rebuild their corp and go somewhere else, that was cool. If they wanted to stay with us, that was fine. So it started out as that kind of thing. That was kind of like a bit of an altruistic project in a way. And then it also became a bit of a filter for new corps joining. When I say filter, more of a kind of cultural filter, just to sort of make sure people are aligned with the same sort of style and social constructs as we had. And it's flip-flopped over the years. It's become different things, but it still retains that. Right now, it retains that kind of landing spot, I'd say, for any new corps or even returning corps to come back, just to sort of have a bit of a landing spot where expectations aren't necessarily as high, and it's a bit of a tissue rejection filter as well.
But you have like over the years kind of cultivated an envious position, because you're allied with, I don't know if you're allied with CFC, but definitely you are with Imperium, but you're not part of the Imperium. And I think you're the only group that has that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the definitions are anymore. People. I mean, there are official coalitions, there are unofficial coalitions. I think that the key thing for us is it took a long while before we actually joined any coalition. I think, actually, that's not necessarily true. Let me take a step back. Initially, we had some work initially with NC, but for a while we really wanted to be as independent as we could. But it just, at some point it got to the point where you reached a level in the game and you couldn't do anything unless you're part of some or aligned to some kind of block, even informally. So we've always tried to do our own thing as much as we can, and both retain our own culture and also just make sure we don't get complacent and end up just using everyone else's FCs, forums, setup services, and all that kind of stuff. So when you still try to do that today as much as we can. So we very much aligned with our allies, and ready to help them whenever. But we try and keep our own thing going, just so we don't get lazy and complacent.
So kind of like CO2 used to be.
I don't know that much about CO2 really. I think probably at a guess. I think probably another thing that I'd probably say distinguishes us a little bit is we are relatively mobile. We kind of have this philosophy of having a couple of staging locations around EVE, where we kind of rotate amongst them on different frequencies. That could be once a year, or it could be once a week. So we do tend to stay more mobile than most, and obviously that might be changing a little bit now with Sol having more of a prevalence in the game, but we still try and operate quite far from the mothership as long as we can.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's bring you up to recent history. There's NC. You were in Syndicate, if I'm not mistaken. You had Moons there. NC with Horde kind of jumped in and took those. You guys were convinced to move south into Aquarius because there was an economic model that would make you guys super rich, I imagine. I'm just saying what I've heard. And you guys went down there and you were in Aquarius sharing the space with Aquarius Fight Club. And then NC recently moved down to Gehi, where they're staged out and they're doing attacks in the area. But recently they went on a spree of reinforcing stuff in Aquarius, mostly Aquarius Fight Club territory. So in retaliation, a lot of stuff was reinforced in NC's territory in the north. So do you know much about that conflict and the tit for tat? Is there anything going on there?
It's probably just, it's probably a couple of things really. It's just probably first and foremost just getting active again. We've taken a couple of months break. Last year was a pretty awesome year for us. Everyone really enjoyed it, but it was also pretty intense. We spent the whole year pretty much on campaign after campaign. So we needed to give everyone, and especially the FC team, a bit of a break really, and just have a couple months off of just catching our breath. And just to answer your previous question. We went to Aquarius just to hedge our bets, really, with the new kind of changes with SOV and moons and stuff. We've got a pretty good idea what that's going to turn out to be, but you never really know. So Aquarius is a bit of a hedge better on a bit of SOV space there. But yeah, I guess now we are becoming a bit more active again. It's hopefully summer isn't completely gone in the UK, but we are just starting to wake up and do some more ops. And just thought it'd be a little time to reminder just to show some familiar enemies that there's also some shit we can do to make it super annoying for them. So a couple of ops went up to Tribute, and nothing super try hard, just ref a whole bunch of shit, and managed to get a few kills out of it.
Yeah, a ton of stuff. It's funny. Your name keeps coming up for a couple of reasons, but one of them is you have a lot of fans, like more so than other FCs that I've met. There are people like, oh, have Sister Liz on your show. It's almost like they swoon, to hear you. Where's that come from? Is that just your accent, or
his charisma? He's amazing.
Is it your artistic ability? Because you're also an artist, right?
No, I'd love to be an artist. I am accountable for some of our horrible banners, but no, I'm definitely not an artist. I would love to be, but sadly not talented enough.
Didn't you make that graphic design when you did your State of the Alliance? Did you make that graphic design, poster?
Yeah, it's just a bit of Photoshop though. It's not.
Oh my God, you're modest. That was an amazing piece of work. Unfortunately, it was too sexy for INN, so we had to take it down. But
yeah. Oh yeah, I know the Bikini Baby. Well, it's just a bit of photographs and Photoshop, but no, I guess nice. I don't know about fans. You fly with a lot of people over the years, and I've been playing the game a long time, and actually coincidentally, the first kind of big campaign I did was with Mercenary Coalition. I wasn't actually in Mercenary Coalition, but when they came north and invaded Iron and D2 and Razor and all those guys. So I don't know. You play the game over a long time. You get to meet a lot of people. You hopefully have a lot of fun with them, and through FCing and stuff, hopefully give a lot of fun back to people. So yeah, hopefully there's some people out there who've enjoyed that. But there's equally an even number, if not more, people who really can't stand me. So so yeah, that's how it is.
So full disclosure, McLeod here, who runs the podcast, he's the producer, is from Initiative too. So no conflict there. Okay. So the Aquarius stuff was interesting because you guys have been kind of not afraid of NC, which is puzzling, but it's neat to see. Like you guys,
should everybody fear NC? Is that what you're saying?
I like to think so, but no, like you guys outform us sometimes. Like we don't have enough to take initiative on, kind of stuff. Not all the time.
It's kind of, I don't know really. It's on paper we look the same, but I think it's probably more a case for us. We're a bit lazy on admin. We've actually got a lot of people on paper, but a lot of those probably need a bit of pruning, and it's one of my summer jobs to do. But I think it's difficult to get a good fight with you guys unless it's kind of a roaming kind of setup, because everyone is always waiting to out escalate and so on and so forth. But sadly this year there wasn't that many actually, I don't think there was hardly any brawls because the numbers just never really stacked up, and it was one of those where I think nobody really wanted to give too many fights away. But I mean, we've had some good fights versus you guys in the past. I think loads of skirmish fighting down in Curse many years ago. Not too much lately, but it's always good fun to fight NC, and there's always a lot of people who are very excited and local, and love to comment about various things.
Yeah, that's funny. Some people in the chat channel are saying they swoon for you. How many of you out there are swooning? That's funny. It's it is interesting that you guys do have a good reputation for fighting. It's probably why you get challenged. It's because you'll fight back, and you have made an amazing use of command destroyers. You guys are like the really good at bushing, they call it, and that's a command destroyer can creep up on a fleet and jump it away 100 kilometers and then deal with it in pieces. And you guys have gotten really good at that. Was that something that you set out to do early on?
What do you call that doctrine, Sister Bliss?
We call it the Snatch Doctrine. So first of all, I should probably just say explicitly, it's absolutely nothing to do with me. Sadly, it's all the genius of Pandaralika, who's one of our FCs, and has always been tinkering, and he totally loves all the kind of really intricate, complex type setups, and that was really his baby. And it was originally born out of some of the small remote rep gangs that he does. He does a lot of really fun kind of small gangs which are designed to look somewhat innocuous and normally end up embarrassing people. So it was really his design that he started out with, this concept of a large scale command destroyer gang that was remote rep, where you would literally just warp in and literally snatch a specific target if you could. Looking for trying to grab an FC out of the clutches of the main fleet, or grab a couple. And I think he's done an amazing job at it, and there's a bunch of other guys who are pretty decent at flying it as well. And we've used it on lots of occasions, but and it's been great fun. At the same time, we've used it on lots of occasions, and we've totally lost the whole fleet. It is it's a lot harder to FC than traditional fleets, and the consequences for when it goes wrong aren't very good. You literally just get blanked very, very quickly. So I mean, we tend to use it a lot, and specifically Panda and a bunch of other guys, and it's a whole bunch of fun.
Well, you guys you're the ones that are known for it that I can think of. Like, it's when the Snatch fleet comes around, the FCs perk up because they're like, "Oh, this can cause trouble." Even as recently as the Providence Keepstar, when Initiative showed up, I could hear the FC channel kind of like light up with like, "Oh, check it, be careful, they're about to take part of you guys away," and that sort of thing. And sure enough, you guys split the fleet in half, or you took a chunk of it away. And people are like, how did I get here? They had no idea, even though they were given warnings and stuff.
Yeah, it's particularly it can be a lot of fun, especially when you're flying in there and things go. Things do go wrong now and again, and suddenly the whole fleet is all over the grid, scrambling to recover. But yeah, it's a bunch of fun.
All right, last question in this kind of interview style, but what's it like to run an alliance for people who are aspiring to do so? Well, that sums it up. Thank you.
Really put him on the spot with that kind of like out of nowhere alliance level question.
It's hard to answer, right? Because there's so many facets to it. I think for me, it's a learning experience, right? Just dealing with people from all different kinds of backgrounds, different ages, different expectations. It's kind of a real learning experience of hopefully how to get better at kind of managing a big social group. And I'm still learning doing it. And I think it's one of those things you really have to kind of want to. I don't know. I'm not even sure if I initially set out to want to be an alliance leader. I always wanted to be an FC and have fun doing that, and always try and improve. But I think you have to really persevere, because it's a ton of work, and especially when things don't go well, you got to pick everybody up, and you also got to pick yourself up. So you have to be really tenacious and stick at it. So I think that's my first recommendation, is just try and surround yourselves with some people who are going to hopefully help with that. It always helps to FC yourself, or have some good FCs with you to help create content. And then you have to be persistent, and hopefully try and find something that's a little bit differentiating, that makes yourself a little bit different from the rest of the alliances out there, so you can maybe attract people who like that particular style of play that you do, and just keep at it.
Speaking of a little bit different, tell us about this Amish Mafia Leviathan on Thursday. What's the story behind that?
Again, this is like one of those situations where someone just gives you a Titan kill. We deserve absolutely no credit whatsoever for this. We were just forming up for a scheduled op anyway, and we had just cycled to one of our stagings in Syndicate, and we're just forming up. And just out of the blue, I get this convo from this guy, and I can't even remember his name. So thank you very much to the guy if he's listening. But just convos me at the blue and says, "Hey, we've just spotted a Titan that's cloaked 5K or 7K off an offline tower in Outer Ring." So we just, because we are literally forming anyway, we just sent to sign him over, got some dictors, and just mitted a Titan, and literally we were good to go in like 5 minutes, and just dropped in it, decloaked, and bang, it was dead. We didn't even need the dreads. It was just complete shit fit. So literally that never happens with those sorts of good fortune kills, but there you go. Just I guess being able to react quickly was good. But it's quite fortunate, to be honest, because I think literally everybody in the whole Northwest had been backphoned at the same time, because as we killed it, there was a convo from someone in Culture saying, "Hey, we were just on the way for that." So I guess we just got there just in time.
All right, good for you. All right, so to just kind of wrap up this part of it, there is activity in the north and in Aquarius. The north, I mean Tribute, which is where NC has territory. And a lot of that's actually being reinforced by, some say Goon Alt Corps, but the Aquarius Fight Club. And I think you guys have had a hand in that as well. So up in Tribute and also down in Aquarius, there's a lot of exchanging of sovereignty and or timers made for sovereignty and structures and stuff. So we'll see how that pans out. And it looks like Pandemic Horde has dropped a ton of Astra houses in Aquarius, like multiples per system. So we'll see how hard that is to root out, or see what that actually brings. I wonder, do you guys think it's just an effort to keep busy during the summer, or do you think that there's some Sov? Do you think they actually want to take a chunk of Sov? Can't imagine why. Any guesses? All right, we'll leave it to the audience.
I don't.
Are you talking up in Tribute, or are you talking down
Aquarius. He's
Aquarius?
talking about the
Aquarius.
place where they spammed a whole bunch of Raitarus all at the same time in sort of a shotgun attempt to get one through. Happens to be a really nice dead end back system with lovely true sec and an ice belt. So I mean, it's not, if one were going to go try to take a foothold and do something, it would be a good choice. But I think it's probably more likely they just wanted to choose a location that created a number of options for them to create a little bit of uncertainty and disguise their motives. They're trying not to telegraph. That's my read, but I'm not an expert like some of the rest of y'all on the channel.
That was a pretty good explanation. You actually sounded like a waiter talking about a delicious special you guys have.
There are some specials today.
Yeah.
The special of the day is probably Keepstar. Am I right, Newbed?
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Good
Couple hours.
transition. Let's talk about that. There is Keepstar that may be taken out, be the first one in wormhole space. And Newman, you know something about that.
Yeah, it's something we've been planning for quite some time. We first started having talks about it before FanFest, like in April. It kind of the goal of it wasn't really, to go after the target, like the alliance itself, Inner Hell. It was just we wanted to kill the Keepstar in wormholes. That's pretty much the goal. And so we did a lot of testing on Sissy, a lot of looking at how people have killed them in nullsec and on TQ already. And we decided on a strategy and had our guys start training towards it and buying it up. and it took us months and months of preparation to get where we're at today. I mean, the Russians think that we seeded all these capitals in a few days, but it's like just they think it's impossible, which it is pretty impossible to do in just a couple of days. But we've been planning this for quite some time, so we've been getting these capitals into the system for many weeks now.
Well, to think of Russians on a back foot in wormholes is kind of strange because they're really a dominant force in there.
Yeah, for years, they're the boogeyman of wormholes for sure. They started a lot of trends like log off traps and throwing capitals all around and evictions, and so it's kind of come full circle for them.
Yeah, well, you were allies with Quantum Explosion, weren't you?
Yeah, about 2 years ago, the three of us, Quantum Explosion, LaserHawks, and Hard Knocks, kind of just went hog wild, ganking all the C5 and C6 site running fleets. We all kind of shared intel of who was running and what was going on, and if, we couldn't get the numbers together by ourselves, so we'd say, hey, this is what we plan on doing, and we're going to go and log off some ships in this hole and kill things. So yeah, we did that for months. We did have a good relationship.
Mm-hmm. Are these the same guys or different?
The leadership has definitely changed. A lot of the old Quantum Explosion was the old Blood Union leadership.
Right. Those are
Blood
the
Union's really old Wormhole Corp.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, nowadays it's pretty different leadership.
Yeah, Blood Union were the original boogeyman because they would always seem to show up where you were and kill you out of nowhere. And they just pioneered, as you said, a lot of techniques for killing ratters and stuff. And so their name became feared, and then they mutated into Quantum Explosion. And along with you guys, basically took over C6s because there's only like 118 of those, right? Systems.
Yep, right around there, just plus or minus a couple shattered wormholes. Yeah.
And then once they took it over, there was, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Brave Newbies Wormhole Alliance. The Drop Bears were the last standing free, I guess, alliance to live in there. And once they got out, it was kind of colonized for renting, wasn't it? Not that you had anything to do with that, but that's what Quantum Explosion was doing.
I mean, renting gets thrown around a lot. We embrace the joke and rent and scam, and we laugh about it. I mean, our alliance is a crab, and crab comes from Russians. They didn't have a word for Care Bear, so they called Care Bears crabs, and so we thought it was hilarious, and we've pretty much built our entire alliance around a Russian joke.
That's right.
So we loved the ironic stuff like that, like renting and stuff like that. But yeah, the Russians did rent for years. They were bigger than we are today in their renter corp. I mean, they had like close to 1,000 people that were pure renters in an alliance. With our alliance, we're around like 700 to 800, and all the corps that are in our alliance are just alt corps, because you need a lot of like corp things that you can't give. You can't give your directors to everybody. You need your own set of bookmarks. You need POS level roles to set up things for bear holes and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, so an interesting note is that you guys were also the first ones to put up a Keep Star, period. The first Keep Star was yours, and it was in wormhole space.
Yeah, it's kind of been a big thing for us lately. We had the first Fortizar as well, the first Keep Star. And so we've been liking doing these, big history things. So it's been pretty good.
And then here you are, full circle. You're about to take out the first Keep Star in wormhole space, which is no small feat because you have to deliver a lot of firepower on these structures and defeat the home fleet, but also take out the structure itself, which can defend itself very well in a very limited space, because you can't just bring fleet after fleet after fleet like you can in nullsec. So this is a bigger deal.
It's a different it's a different battle to strategize for compared to like nullsec or anywhere else. You have to guess what they have for home field advantage, right? Like if someone was to come to our home wormhole, you know, they could guess that we would have, you know, 100 to 200 dreadnoughts and you know doctrines and doctrines of ships, you know, to hand out to anybody that could get a pod in. So going after another Keepstar, you know, you need to plan for all kinds of crazy fleet doctrines that you could fight. You know, they could easily have rolled for 3 days straight and got in, you know, 1,000 pilots from, you know, all over Eve, whatever kind of Russian friends that they have. So going into this, it wasn't like hey, we're gonna start on Monday and we're gonna start this on, you know, Thursday. We're gonna start prepping for it Monday. It took months. It took like hundreds of billions of IS to get all these ships and extra, you know, drones and extra doctrines to, you know, swap doctrines on the fly like that. And it's pretty wild. It's probably one of the first times ever in Wormhole's history that somebody has taken it this far, and the amount of prep stuff. I can't tell you guys the exact number of capitals that we have seeded in the wormhole, because we are still in the process of killing it. In a couple hours later in the day, we'll be happy to share some insane numbers to wormholers. But it is the largest invading capital force that has ever preceded into another wormhole in the history of wormholes, for sure.
Congratulations.
We should get some eyes on that. Maybe we can sneak someone in from INN to live stream it. This is a big deal.
Yeah,
how prepared do you think the Keepstar is? I mean, you sound really well prepared, but how much do you know about the Keepstar? How's your intel?
So the Russians have a lot of money for sure. I'm sure, like, you know, trillions, like plenty of Liquidisk. A lot of them build Titans and Supers, and, you know, just they have plenty of money. They've been, you know, running wormhole sites just like us for years. What they have brought into their hole, you know, you can't be 100% sure. They could have like a secret doctrine, you know, that they never ever fly, but it's sitting, you know, hiding in their hole. But the thing that made this kind of go poorly for them is they have moved out of this wormhole almost completely, leaving behind only, you know, a few people that use it for PvE. They do like PI and gas and run the sites, but they've moved into a C2 with a static C6 and a static nullsec. And, you know, a lot of the Imperium people probably, you know, have seen Inner Hell because they rolled nullsecs and, you know, ganked their oracles and stuff like that.
Wait, I don't understand. So they built the Keepstar and then they vacated the system where they built it? Or is this after your invasion?
No, this is a long time ago, like maybe 6 to 9 months ago. They've pretty much, you know, left it.
Oh, that's interesting. And this is going to be one of the bigger Keepstar explosions, right, as far as ISK goes?
Yeah, so for a lot of the case space people that don't know the mechanics, everything's going to drop out of this thing. Personal hangars, corporate hangars. It's what it does is when the Keepstar explodes, it creates a sphere of cans all around the structure, and inside the cans can be anything. It could be your personal hangars from all your members. It could be capital ships inside there, freighters, oracles, whatever, all their ships. You know, all the corporate hangars, stuff like that. In one of our last evictions, we killed a Fortizar from a pretty prominent corp in Wormhole's TLC, and just that alone was 300 billion-ish worth of loot in these cans.
Yeah, this is one of the things that we were talking about last night, so I'm kind of having a little bit of a deja vu right now. But you know, between the logistics that it takes to move all of that force, yeah, it's through multiple wormholes, right? I mean, this is not the wormhole next door, right? I mean, you're having to go through all of these different connections and everything to be able to get there, you know, and the months it takes, and the people who are dedicated to that. And it's not just, well, let me go dock up these capitals there, right? I mean, these all have to have alts on them in order to,
yeah, it's not something you can do not something you do overnight at all. I mean, these people, we've pretty much told our guys like, hey, how far out can you seed? 6 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever. Do you need more time to prepare? Do you need more time to inject pilots, buy ships? Let us know. And then we got them seeded, and they were logged off for weeks, like alts that they can't log in. So it's a pretty big investment, time.
Yep. And then and then the whole thing with asset safety here, boys, right? There is none here. I mean, this is the purest form of it in the game. And when you hear about stuff like this, right? I mean, apparently the reports are that Interhell is SDing their SDing capitals off the freaking undock or whatever it is. I mean, but it all drops. This is not the asset safety that nullsec has, which is basically all your shit is safe.
But do you have insurance in wormhole space? And then when you self-destruct, you get that money back, so you're basically exporting the ISK out, or is there no insurance?
Recently, they have added insurance to Citadels, yeah.
So
you can insure.
So they can insure their stuff, self-destruct it, and that's how they're actually getting their monies out.
Right.
Okay.
So they've already self-destructed over 30 or 40 capital ships on the undock. It's not something brand new. It's a strategy or tactic that's been happening for a long time. It's something, if you read the summit notes, I've asked CCP to address, or do they think it's a good mechanic? Do they think that they could help us out and cause self-destruct to cancel tether? Because so we could shoot these things while they self-destruct.
So we get at least horror on the kill mail.
have a chance to shoot it. Okay. This from Capri. The T2 rigs that are on this thing are very expensive. In fact, there are none on the market in JITA, so they've been hard coded at 575 billion, but they're actually worth more because that's just a guesstimate. But the rarity of it would make the price go even higher. So some estimates say that this is going to be a 900 billion ISK kill. And that would be probably the biggest kill in history.
Yeah, it does have a Tech 2 Doomsday rig. They're lucratively expensive. That's something that me personally as a CSM have asked CCP, like, hey, is this the price range you really want these things to be? They're very good, very effective rigs, but they're insanely expensive. Like the hull for the Keepstar itself is around 300 bill. 300 to 350 market price. And these Tech 2 rigs, if you wanted to go buy all the stuff for it in JITA right now, it'd be around 630 bill just for one rig. And you need 3 rigs. You could have 3 of these things on it.
Yikes. Oh, and the
fact that they have that much wealth installed in just the rigs probably means there's a fair amount of wealth sitting in that Keepstar waiting to be dropped like candy.
They recently purged a lot of inactive members, and those inactive members have assets that haven't been, removed. So those things, they can't self-destruct, right?
That's right. So by purging members, those guys are basically trapped because when they come back, there's going to be none of their stuff.
Nope.
Oh.
What time is the timer for that?
Let me see.
And somebody was saying
3 hours from now.
In about 3 hours from now. Okay.
Yeah.
And somebody was saying out in Twitch chat that there is a person, I guess, from Interhell, goes by the name of Gen140, that has been streaming this the last couple of days and probably will for the final as well. So, if other people can't find a way of getting in there to sit in the grandstands and cam this thing, apparently this Gen140 on Twitch might be showing it. So
yeah, I gotta see.
Yeah, CCP hosted his stream on the first day, so we'll see if they do it again.
Is that the one that Falcon was like? He tweeted out a picture of himself watching it on his big screen TV.
Yeah, that's the one.
Interesting. Well, the last thing about this that I thought was interesting is a twist of fate, because it used to be that and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the Magnetar wormholes were the ones that you wanted because you do double damage in those. But can you explain why that's a disadvantage here?
So the Magnetar effects only affects ships and drones. It doesn't affect structures. Like, previously we had posses, it wouldn't affect those, and it doesn't affect the keep star itself. But what it does is it halves your locking range, right? For all ships, half right down the middle. But it also doubles your damage. But it also halves your tracking speed and makes your missiles half of like explosion velocity. So things don't track well, things don't shoot well with missiles, and you can't lock like barely in front of your face. So it's a really interesting system to fight in. But people think that the Magnetar effect gets put onto the Keep Star, and that would make the Keep Star have insane DPS, which it doesn't. But what I was telling you yesterday was the only effect that actually does help structure is the Pulsar effect. It's the shield wormhole. What it does is it makes the signature radius bigger for all ships inside of the wormhole. So larger sig missiles from the Keep Star would hit it better.
So structures are more effective in a system like that.
Yes.
So if you're going to build a Keep Star in a wormhole, you might want to consider what the environment's like, since it bends all sorts of different ways. And what used to be considered a popular Magnetar is probably not good for structures, as good for structures.
It also halves the amount of ships that you need as well, to hit the damage cap, right? Because it's double damage.
Yep.
And that's an advantage for you, because now you're doing double damage. You need half the amount of ships to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Magnetar, if I'm not mistaken, was the one that was featured in, what was it, Rooks and Kings movie? I forget, number 3 of whatever their series is there. And it's like a half hour, and it's really like a feature film for EVE players. It's an amazing piece of work that tells a story about the Magnetar and how there was a trick that a group was using with Magnetar that they had. You just have to watch it, but it had negative. You could be hitting at a really far distance by kind of working the game in a certain way, and that's not a very elegant explanation because it's hard to explain, and I forget all the words. But Magnetar systems have been coveted for a long time for that reason.
Yes, with the C6 Magnetars, there's only 10 of them in the game, and Hard Knocks currently holds 8 of them. With Interhell holding the other 2.
Who is the competition to Hard Knocks at this point out there in Wormhole Land?
I mean, we've got our good friends Laserhawks.
Who are with you guys as part of this siege, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of people might not know, but Hard Knocks and Laserhawks actually used to be in an alliance back in 2013 called Kill It With Fire. And both, Hard Knocks and Laserhawks at the time, it was called Lead Farmers before it was Laserhawks. And Lead Farmers was a much more established, stronger corp than Hard Knocks was. We were kind of like the hotshot, teenager punk kids that, flew around Drakes and, talk shit in local, I guess.
Yeah, I heard that about you guys.
Yeah, so what's kind of funny with all these bear hole things is Hard Knocks really propelled itself upwards, and its strength and what it can pull off by these Magnetars and these bear holes and stuff like that. It's different for the average wormholer, how we make our money and stuff like that.
That's cool. All right, so a quick review of the show so far. We have talked to Sister Bliss about the campaigns going on against NC Dot, and that's happening up north in Gemini. It's also happening in Aquarius, and Horde is now involved in that. So we've also talked about a Keep Star that's going to blow up. The most expensive kill in EVE history is about to happen in 3 hours, and hopefully we'll get that televised on INN News, or you can see it probably on CCP's channel. And we're talking to Newman and Sister Bliss. And now I want to shift over to game news so we can get your guys' opinions on some of the stuff that's going to happen. And the first question I want to throw out, not in our notes, but T3s, how's that going to affect wormholes? And are you excited about those kinds of things? And I want to remind everybody that Newman is actually on CSM.
So the big shift for wormholers was the most common or most popular T3 was the Legion or the Proteus. for high class spaces, mostly the Legion, the Ham Legion. That ship got changed a lot. They took away some of the damage from the missiles, and they shifted it over to drone damage to kind of fall in line with the Mars ships being, having drone weapon systems.
By the way, HAM stands for Heavy Assault Missiles, for those who don't know.
And so drones and wormhole spaces just aren't the best. We plan very heavily before each fight, and one smart bombing ship can take care of all your drones and kind of negate that damage. So the big shift for, I think, wormholes and most of nullsec is going to be going to the heavy assault missile Loki. The Loki used to be one of the worst T3s and is now looking like it's going to be the best.
All right. Do you have an opinion on Sister Bliss? Do you have an opinion on the T3 changes? Have you had any chance to look at them, or are you even concerned? Is that part of your guys' doctrines?
Well, to be honest with you, I haven't really been that active all that lately, but I think, for me personally, I think the changes are probably a welcome change. I think they were far too strong before and probably had too much of an influence on other people's campaigns, with the ability to take huge fleets of them through wormholes and stuff like that, and really be able to, I wouldn't say dominate the battlefield, but have a significant effect as they used to have. So I think the change is good. I personally haven't pored over them in a huge amount of detail, but they do, the low consistence to be particularly strong. It looks like they're probably going to fulfill a really great role for fast hitting, medium to large scale fights, but they aren't. They lost a good amount of EHP, so they're not as tough as they were before. But potentially looks like some good changes. I haven't looked through the details, so I know the Protoss has taken quite a bit of a heavy nerf. But no, I think it's quite good. I think it's it's always exciting when things change and you get to play around with them. So we're looking to play them as well and have a bit of a experiment with a few ideas.
Yeah. The market seems to be going nuts. Like I just see prices spiking all over the place for parts, and it's kind of counterintuitive. If something's getting a nerf, why are the prices going up? What's going on?
I don't think that has anything to do with the specifics of the T3 changes. I think that's a different piece of EVE gameplay, market manipulation.
Oh, you think it's...
Yeah, it started out related to the T3 changes and then took off on its own gameplay thing and went from there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I've been watching it, and it's kind of astounding, but now it makes more sense. Well, that's cool. So that's the T3s. Those changes are already in. People are starting to see how they play out, and we'll know more later on. It is a big change because that ship is so well used by many alliances, and to see them change, it can disrupt a lot of balance of power issues. So
mothballed my Proteus. I had to go buy a freaking Legion.
You still had a Proteus? Didn't you get
No. I mean, I was flying a Proteus in armor, as an armor hack, in our fleet. So had to go buy a Legion now. Damn Proteus, got to put it on the shelf.
A few weeks ago, Proteus was great, and wow. All right, so some big announcements coming out of CCP. Big for some people. For other people, it's like a footnote. But walking in stations is now on the is on the slate to be taken out of the game. So and that's in the captain's quarters. Dirk, you want to explain what's going on there?
Well, I mean, CCP is finally getting around to basically putting what I'll call the final nail in the coffin of Incarna. They're getting rid of captain's quarters. I don't know if that said exactly when that was happening or what, but it's coming at some point in the near future. That basically, they've been having to maintain this, and it was costing resources to be able to maintain this thing that apparently about 3% of the player base is still using. And it just became one of those issues of, do they continue to spend resources on trying to do this? There's been people out there who I think have been kind of wishfully thinking that maybe at some point ambulation would, would come back in some form in Eve. But this has really been dead for years now, and this is just finally, kind of putting the whole thing to bed.
Was that a $50 donation just now? From
Oh, are you
Wolfglen?
serious?
Holy cow. Does
Wolf
this have
fans.
anything to do with the captain's quarters being removed? Because I'm wondering if that's some sort of
If it was Wolfglen, it makes sense because he's been doling out $50 tips left and right, which is amazing.
He's been a good friend of Matt Show. He's been a good friend to Open Comms too.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know what? He gets a shout out, in the middle of the show.
Everybody, Wolfglen's the guy paying for all this stuff, so you guys need to thank him.
Thank you, bro.
Like we do. Yeah, really appreciate that. So that was one of the announcements, and we'll come back to that because I want to talk about that a little bit more. But the other announcement was that Twitch support inside the client is going away. Anybody care about that?
I don't think one streamer out there cared about that, and they would be the ones most likely to have cared, right? It was something that at the time maybe made a little bit of sense, and for CCP to try and help spur, which back in 2013 I think is when it came out. There were hardly any streamers out there, but there were some, and I think they were trying to help out, this sort of fledgling Eve streaming community. But it just never, it never took off. I mean, it was just one of those things where there were other ways of doing it and getting around things and whatnot that the streamer community, used. And this is just sort of, again, a dead feature.
But it's sort of a marketing feature. It's not something you're really going to use. It's just something that reminds people, you can stream this game on Twitch. You should do that. This is a good thing. This is a thing people are doing right now. At that time, Twitch was newer. It made more sense. They didn't execute it in a way that was really, really functional. And there's much better ways to stream as we do. And going back for a second to the captain's quarters, the advantage of being able to take that out of the game is you reduce some of your technical debt for the game. You can take out some pieces of middleware that are like no longer fully supported by the original writer of the middleware. And so you can walk away from that software, which was actually holding them back from being able to convert the Eve client to being 64-bit. So there's some technical reasons to clean that up and remove it that aren't going to make a lot of obvious benefit to the players, but do some good things for the dev team. So
for our very technical audience that understands the difference between 32-bit and 64-bit, what do you guys think that's going to bring to the game? Why would that be something they would want to put on their slate? Because we kind of looked at it before the show to say, like, what are some of the things that this is going to do? And it was really just grab more memory, and you see a few improvements.
I think that was, from the people that Carneros was talking to, that basically with the way Eve is set up, right, is it would allow accessing more than 2 gigabytes of memory, right?
For each client. For each Eve Online client that you have open at a given time.
What's the real world effect? So, I mean, multi-boxing will be easier? Or you could do it with more?
I don't think it does have that. My IT guy is whispering me at the moment to help me out on this. And he's explaining that, by the way, the middleware that's 32-bit that they're having to keep working with in order to keep captain's quarters in the game is not something that they can modify themselves. They can't really update it, so they have to work around it as they work. So it's the real world benefits are more for the CCP developers than the CCP customers, and the developers will have fewer headaches and less late night drinking based on this not having to pull their hair out working around this awkward middleware layer.
But now when we talk about a client in Eve, okay, I mean, with the way the launcher works now, is the launcher basically the client, and then every account that you run at the same time is an instance on the same client, or do those, or would it function as each one of those that you had logged in would be their own client?
Each one's their own client. So in the same way you could launch 3 different unrelated programs on your computer at the same time, you can launch 3 different instances of EVE Online at the same time. Each one currently will take up to 2 gigabytes of memory, but in the future, it's possible that each one could take more if they needed to. Now, this isn't the kind of game where you have to zoom in really close on a very complicated model of a human being and render multiple of them.
Well, not anymore, right?
At the same time, not anymore. So it's not going to have as much effect as it would be if this were, say, World of Warcraft or something like that.
Or Conan, where everybody has size Ds. Like there's no real body shapes. It's all fictional fantasy.
Size D's what?
Size
Never
D's
mind.
shoes.
Size D's shoes.
I think you're right. I think it will be good for developers. Maybe it gets some things out of the way. Maybe it takes less time to do things they wanted to do. But for clients, I'm not sure there'll be a huge boost, which was a question that we had. And that's what Carneros went to try to find answers to.
Well, a lot of EVE players are fussy about what they want their devs working on. So here's the chance for them to take a little bit of time out of the bank and spend it on whatever you want them to, or Noobman and the CSM tell them to work on.
Yeah. Hey, Noobman, do you have anything to say about this?
The way they kind of explained it to us was, it takes people every single time they release a patch to go through and make sure that, the walking stations is working. There's no new bugs with it. They have to, go down a checklist and make sure everything is working. And so that is those people can be doing something else, working on bugs that happen with, the new release, or, anything else that's more productive than something that people don't use.
Yeah. What did you expect people to think about this? Was it what you expected, that it wouldn't be? Because it doesn't seem like there's much of an uproar.
When we first heard it, we all kind of gasped at each other and said there's going to be some pretty angry people. Mm-hmm. Zenaria was in the room, so he was pretty unhappy about his shoes, not being able to see his shoes as easily.
So if people don't know, he campaigned on trying to get female shoes that are flat rather than high-heeled, and that was a big controversy for him and part of his platform. Yeah. Now it doesn't matter.
But I think for us, everybody took it much better than we expected, for sure. I thought there was going to be a bigger uproar, but I think they finally really communicated this one well. It took a lot of time to explain, the ins and outs and why it's important to get rid of this.
Can we go back to the shoes for just a second for a funny anecdote?
Yeah.
Sure.
At one point, CCP had a fashion designer on the team. In fact, I think they had a second fashion designer on contract who was, working from New York and involved in New York Fashion Week and stuff like that. But the gal, if you walked over to that gal's area, she had all these fashion hand pencil drawings pasted all over the wall beside her desk, and there were guys and girls in different outfits, and all just looked just like like you would picture in like a catalog or something. And she's working away in different things, and she putting them in sets, and this goes with this, and all it was great.
Wow.
She had themes for how colors would work, and
this is a big deal, isn't it? Because you were there when they were starting all this up, and they were going to have clothing for characters. I guess all the clothing still works, right? Because you can see it in portrait mode, and maybe people buy clothes to put on their portraits, and that's enough. They don't need to see it walking around. But do you think the clothing kind of thing is going away, or?
They have tons of fantastic designs to go still implement if they want to, and some of them are implemented and unused, and then they're it could be fun and refreshing for an artist to stop doing something that he or she has been doing for several years and go make a piece of clothing or do something different every now and then. You don't necessarily want to eat spaghetti and meatballs every night for dinner for the rest of your life.
Speak for yourself. But yeah, well, I think also it's a real firm signal the direction Eve is going, right? Because there was, even to this day, there was talk of like, well, wait a minute, there's a secret team working on Incarna. Maybe we'll see. Dirk?
Well, I just want to address something that Caleb's saying out there. He's saying clothing in EVE Online is RIP with the removal of the captain's quarters. You know what? The whole reason for having bought clothing in the last 4 years, if you bought one article of clothing in the last 4 years, you weren't doing it because you were thinking, well, someday I'm going to be walking through a station, because they weren't working on this. It has been ripped for a long time. Literally nobody was basically using captain's quarters, and you didn't go buy a set of clothes and go, let me go see what I look like in my captain's quarters. You bought it because, well, I don't know why you bought it, to be quite honest. But
well, no, so people like fashion. If you have a real fashion designer working on stuff, it's like, it's just like getting a ship skin for some people. But I think Newman put his finger on it earlier when he said, and I had a point and I just lost it. So we'll go on from there. Newman said something earlier that triggered me and I forgot what it was. Sorry. All right. But I did want to come back to this thing about, this is a real clear signal that we're going in a direction of fix the spaceship game. We're not going to do the sci-fi world, right? I mean, that's pretty conclusive. Even if they stick this Legion game, which is like a shooter game, inside of EVE, that's still not. That's more like action shooting and EVE strategy and market stuff. But there's really no, space in walking in stations gameplay that they're looking at that I can.
Yeah.
However, someday there will be a major motion picture based on EVE Online. You just know this will eventually happen. And when we do, all of the hardcore nerds are going to be watching for little nods to EVE, such as, oh, that person's wearing that outfit that you used to be able to buy. And I recognize every ship that they're using, and they're all going to be watching it like a hawk.
Yeah. You were going to say something, Newman?
Maybe the thing you were thinking about, we talked about yesterday, was all the tech is not salvageable, right? It's, if they were going to ever do walking in stations, they wouldn't reuse the tech. They would want to use something new.
Off the market, because CCP actually created this engine to be able to sell to other companies, and that didn't work out. And now they can't even use their own engine because it's going to be outdated by the time they ever get to walking stations.
I mean, I don't know if they did it to be able to sell to other companies. Maybe that was a thing, right? But it was more for kind of the World of Darkness plus whatever was going to happen in EVE sort of thing. Well, they were building their own proprietary engine, which at the time. Which at the time, I mean, I believe there was a debate over whether or not they should have used Unreal back then, right? But yeah, the fact that if they were going to do anything with ambulation going forward, right? Captain's Quarters, as we know it now, using the Carbon engine and even the character model, this would all have to be scrapped in favor of a completely new engine. So, who knows? Maybe sometime down the road, they will do something. A lot of people out there think that the whole idea of ambulation is still feasible and might actually expand the EVE Online as we know it, not just the EVE universe, right? But EVE Online as we know it. Maybe they will, but I don't know. When you look at kind of, when you look at sort of some of the other paths that they're on, it does not seem like that is going to be. It does not seem like that is going to be a path that they will take, because when you go back to Incarna, remember, right, that there was a lot of resources that were being dedicated and shifted over to working on that at the time. That actually took away from EVE Online, and there was a big issue over that and whatnot. That I don't see them doing it now. I mean, it would be a major shift for them, I think, to move in that direction.
Carneros, you were there. Like the engine was being built for what was it?
It wasn't being built to sell. It was being built just
Oh.
for those two teams to work with together and to have them be able to switch resources back and forth because they both knew the tool and stuff. One thing I want to say is don't feel bad if you liked the Walking in Stations gameplay and this is all being removed, because the tools have become so much better now that they could literally grab a set of developers with some experience in Unreal Engine 4, and go back in and start again from scratch and be farther in 2 months with this robust suite of tools than they got with all the work they put in before. It literally can be redone. Unreal is really good at character fidelity and efficiency with short draw distances. You're in a space station. We don't have to see 5 miles down the road. It would be an amazingly good fit for this kind of use. They don't have to. They shouldn't be spending a lot of energy building that kind of an engine and dev environment when there are fantastic ones available.
So if they were to start over, it wouldn't be nearly the year and a half that it took to. Okay.
Now the big question is this, okay? Because ultimately, when Captain's Quarters goes away, that is the end of what was known as Walking in Stations, right? How does that affect the name of this show? Will we still be talking in stations?
That's what I was trying to get to. We have to change the name of this show. Damn it. But yeah, because Talking in Stations obviously comes from the Walking in Stations era that we all remember fondly. And it's kind of like a code word that this is a veterans show, right? Because those are the people that would understand the gimmick of it. But, oh well. All right, let's move on to a little bit of other news. And that was that I don't think we covered this, but if we did, let me know. The CCP had a Q&A that was less of a Q&A than a reiteration of the video that CCP Siegel had put out talking about basically, we hear you and we're going to do these things. But the hero of the day was CCP Rise, who in chat stuck around for an hour to 2 hours and answered a lot of questions from people, pretty much to exhaustion. Everybody stopped asking questions. So there was a Q&A. It just came after the show and the post show. So thoughts on that?
You know, I completely missed it. What was the top 5 highlights there? Can anyone recap?
Sure. Newbin, go ahead and recap.
I mean, they did a little bit of rehashing of the video, like you said. They kind of, I would say the downfall of it was they kind of generalized the where they got the questions from, and kind of said, like, a group of people, are saying this. I think people wanted it to feel like a real, like, Q&A and, have a little bit of theater behind it. Like, this is Bob, and Bob said that, this question, and all right, Bob, we're going to answer your question, and here it is. But it was more of a, I don't know, like a spiel.
Well, when you say it was more of what it was less of a Q&A and more of just an A. I mean, until afterwards, and that's when Rise I don't know if it was planned or if Rise kind of figured out that, oh damn, we might want to take some questions, and kind of came into Twitch chat and spent quite a while there. I want to thank whoever it was. I don't have it open right now, but out on INN, there was an article recapping it where this person went and as part of it, parsed out all of the questions that Rise answered as well as Rise's answers, and put them into this article so people can go read that, because when there's 1,600 people in Twitch chat, right, and somebody asks a question and then he comes back later on to answer, it's really a pain in the ass to have to sit there and try and read. So the summary of this was really well done. But yeah, Rise was a freaking hero for that. And like Noobman said, there is a bit of theater involved, okay, when CCP puts on something on Twitch, okay, or there should be. And that is, if you say you're going to have a Q&A, you might want to actually have a Q&A. Otherwise, people, like they did, begin to say, hey, why aren't you answering questions?
But I will say, people kind of confused with that part might have not appreciated the fact that they are saying that they do hear you and they are trying to make changes. And the summer with all of the pitchforking on Reddit and unhappy nerfs and things like that, they are in the future trying to do better about saying we are going to address this, and we do hear you, kind of thing. So that was a great thing about the first Seagull video and then the subsequent Twitch stream that I think got kind of overshadowed by the awkward format of not knowing if it was a Q&A or not. My opinion.
I like the suggestion, talking in tethers. Good one.
Talking in tethers. Yeah. I don't think it necessarily got overshadowed. I mean, there's always going to be some, I hate to say this, there's always going to be some finding fault, okay, especially if they leave the door wide open to it. But I do think that between her video postcard, message that was out there, and then the follow-up to this, they are trying to say, we hear you, okay? The old Bill Clinton, I feel your pain, all right? Now, that's great. We did, I think the community, the EVE player base did need to hear that, but now we'll see what the follow-through is on that, right? I mean, because the proof is going to be in the pudding as we move forward here. We've got the CSM summit coming up in August. We'll see how that goes. We'll see what the minutes from that sound like. Guys like Noobman, will be there, and hopefully they'll get out of it what they will, and then we'll see what the fall brings as far as did you really hear what was being said out there?
Yeah. Well, and this goes back to this was kind of a missed message, I think, where they said Q&A, and then the presentation they give was really all A, as you said, and it was questions that had been given beforehand that people maybe didn't know about. And then all the problem with the chat channel is that you can't take it seriously when there's that many people watching, especially most of it was like Gay for Jay stuff, because he was silenced and they were like free Jay pretty much. And so you really can't then take that seriously. It's moving too fast, and it's anything kind of gets lost. So the fact that Rise did the Q&A afterwards in the chat was a little bit better, because he could answer people directly in there and that sort of thing. But the point of it is, we're talking about this in terms of messaging, it was presented as something that it didn't turn out to meet expectations of. And we were talking about the overall path of development and how we're kind of 3 years into structures and it seems to be faltering. And something came up that I thought was really interesting. And that was, Newman, do you want to talk about this?
We talked a little bit yesterday when you asked me to come on the show and talk about the Keepstar stuff. It was kind of my opinion or insight that kind of led me to believe of why maybe the past 2 or 3 years have felt a little bit sluggish when it comes to things that affect you, the PvP player in Nullsec, or the PvP player in Wormholes, the fundamental changes or new flavor to the game that people are kind of begging for or wanting hasn't come at a rate or a pace that people are wanting. It's kind of the feel that I get from Reddit and other just talking to you players. And my opinion on why it's a thing, and I kind of the team that's responsible for those things that affect us is Team 5-0, right? And I kind of jump at their defense at hey, you might not understand, but they got a massive project thrown in their lap by Game of Drones. Game of Drones was a content team just like 5-0, almost identical, pushing out, the big things that affect all of us in EVE. And that team got kind of dismantled. Eterbium, the head of the team, he retired or quit.
He went to Ubisoft.
Yeah. And then Cameron CCP Nullarbor, got moved around or something like that. And
he just went to Riot Games.
And then I think Master Plan, another big software developer got moved around as well, and so this incredible team, is gone, and this incredible team has promised all of Eve, Citadels are coming, and all these huge structures, and everybody's super hyped for them, and so that gets thrown in the lap of Team 5.0. They've got to pick up the game design of it. They've got to pick up the code of it, and are they going to keep
Team 5.0 is
like CCP Fozzie's team.
okay.
It's run by CCP Mimic, but so they've got to figure out, are they going to use what they've started on, or are they going to start from scratch? And so this has been years in the making of Citadels and engineering complexes and refineries now and everything in between. It's a massive project, and I think once we finally get on the other side of it, hopefully 5.0 is gonna get back into throwing big things at us that affect everybody.
Yeah, they have a lot on their plate, but it is interesting that the Terbium and Null Arbor were the guys that basically said, you know what, the SOV design is pretty cool, but for structures, we're going to let you shoot them. And I wonder if they're the ones that came with that decision of go back to DPS and destruction instead of the way that SOV was working. Because initially they said, designed by Fozzie and others, the SOV system may be the way that structures were going to go, but structures decided to go a different way. And now the guys that went the different way, they've gone from the company. So it's just kind of interesting the way the game develops. It's not, it doesn't seem like there's a master plan that is fixed. It looks like there's different groups of designers that are moving pieces forward at different rates. Which is something that you explained, Carneros, right? That when they have an expansion, they say, okay, who's ready and that sort of thing?
Well, that on that occasion, when it came to Incarna, there wasn't a meeting. There's usually, when I was there was a meeting a short period of time before the big release saying, okay, looking at each team, who's got what ready. There was one particular occasion where that was dramatic and not every team was done, but they split up into usually 2-week sprints. They sit down and plan what they're going to work on for those 2 weeks. They get their sort of epic stories, I don't want to speak in jargon. They get their main themes they're going to work on, and then they each take it back to the team, and they spend a couple hours in a room together writing on 3x5 cards to explain, okay, I'm going to break this down into these tasks, and I'm going to do these I'm going to own doing these tasks on this day, and the next guy goes, I'm going to own doing these tasks over the next 2 weeks, and then they each take their tasks to the board, and they pick on a given day, I'm going to work on this one, and they put them on the in progress section, and they all work together. And the good thing about working in this way is that you can change your priorities along the way. If you get good feedback from the players or negative feedback, and you go, and Seagull comes around and says, I think we should focus more on this and less on this. Well, then you can adjust your tasks around and, okay, I'm going to put these over here and I'm going to take these other tasks, and you can adjust what you're doing. Iteration also. This doesn't look quite good enough, or, this looks fantastic, let's do 3 more like it. You can do that kind of stuff.
So I was going to say, Carneros, I think I understand what you're talking about there. I think, and without wanting to be wholly negative against CCP, that whole agile methodology and way of working just doesn't seem to translate into reality in terms of the quick iterations and the tuning that we'd like to see, week on week. It doesn't seem to map to what you just articulated. I wonder why that is. Why are they not able to, quickly just iterate on tuning things? Because that's what the game needs. In my view, the game needs significant tuning, and they should be centered around the goal of how do we get near constant fights in all theaters in the game. That should be in my view, that should be their first kind of principle that they should bounce everything against, is how do we get content running? How do we make sure that there's not just one timer a week in the whole game? How do we make sure there's like a conflict in every region every week so that there's stuff going on? And they just don't seem to either want to apply that kind of thinking or kind of actually execute and see that agile way of working through.
By the way, somebody in chat says Hilmar directing the company basically to do more work on VR. How do you move assets around to work on Eve? And the point is, or one of the results is that 30% of their income last year was VR. So that's just now. This is going to grow. So, and those devs are reserved for VR. So it's not like they siphon away from.
It's not like Fozzie is, coding for VR or whatever.
Yeah. So try to
teams.
keep that. Yeah, think of it in terms of two different companies under the same roof working on different things, and be thankful. I think that they had the foresight to get into VR because it's paying off pretty well, and it could in the long run feed CCP's EVE Online. Go ahead, Kurt.
Sister Bliss's comment about wanting to keep activity happening in each, as widespread in EVE as you can, as regular as you can. Just at the moment, if I look at timerboard.net, there are 3 active SOV fights going on and 105 more that are coming up soon on the timer board. It's not like, there's more going on than you think.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not. I don't agree with that really. I think we created 30 of those in one night just because we were bored. But the thing that I kind of would like to get away from is, there's one timer and literally the whole game is going to one timer and just blobbing things. It's making it no fun for people. Like, how do we get to the point where
That's man's fault.
How do we get to the point where there is, a good 200, 500, 800 man fight happening in 5 places that are different every week?
Fair point.
Something to look forward to. Last thing we're going to cover today is Dirk McGurk here wrote an article on ghost training and how it's not gone. Do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, okay, look, this is a wordy article, like pretty much every article I've ever written. Does that mean
a rant?
I don't know if I'd say it's a rant. I just use a lot of words because I'm one of those people that I don't know, apparently is inefficient with the use of words. But the point here, so the point here is that there was, I think, a misperception that the bug related to ghost training was fixed. Okay. I think that what we have seen is that ghost training has been knocked off, but the bug associated with it apparently still exists. And I had heard rumors out there, and I'd made comments on a couple of different occasions that there was something beyond ghost training, right? Ghost training is basically the accrual of skill points in excess of what you should be getting when your Omega account lapsed to Alpha and things like that, right? And that was a really big focus of attention. It is the thing that CCP ultimately acknowledged and considered an exploit, right? And called to be an exploit. However, there's another element of this that actually works in reverse and can cause damage to players that has not been publicly acknowledged yet. And I heard rumors about it, but I hadn't seen any evidence until it hit me the other day. Okay. And when it hit me, I went and I filed a support ticket and then decided, you know what? This is something that I believe, number one, the player base needs to know about on a widespread basis, because this can happen to any of you. And that is, if your account is an Omega and it is training its happy Omega skill queue, but it then lapses into Alpha state, okay, by choice or, for whatever reason, right? If you then log in as an Alpha, whatever skill you had in training at that time, okay, ends up being recalculated back as though the entire skill was trained at Alpha speed. So let me give you the example that happened to me. I had Capital Ships 5 in training from the beginning of the 30-day period that I had the account plexed, right? I had 30 days of 2,700 skill points per hour being trained on that. I logged in. Number one, okay, I noticed that my account was still training after it lapsed into Alpha state, which means that ghost training continues to exist. And yes, I ghost trained for 1 day because I just didn't know. But whatever. Anyways, but when I logged in as an Alpha, it recalculated it as though that entire 30 days of training was at the Alpha speed. So basically, instead of needing about 985,000 skill points to complete that skill, I now need 1.98 million skill points to complete that. So I basically lost 1 million skill points, okay? Based on this, because it would have been that double speed for alpha versus half speed for double speed for omega versus half speed for alpha kind of thing. This is something people need to be aware of, that if you have a skill in training, and it's really bad if you have a very long skill in there, right? I mean, if your skill in training is only been in there for 3 days or something like that, no big deal. Or I don't want to say no big deal. Every skill point matters. Skill point lives matter. But it's really noticeable if you've got a long skill in there. So this is something, again, I'm trying to point it out in this article that this bug, okay, everybody talks about ghost training. Ghost training is actually kind of minor in a way, but this bug is much more nefarious. Okay, it is, it gets into far more things than just somebody trying to exploit ghost training. It gets into, you could potentially lose skill points, or, and when I say lose, I don't mean permanently, right? I mean that you will have to know about it and then file a support ticket and get it cleared up.
Well, thanks for that public announcement. It's not out there until Dirk looked it up and tested it himself.
Well,
and then
it has been out there, and you know what? Again, props to
no. I mean the
like,
news of it. The news.
Oh,
of
well,
it
I mean, it's been talked about on Reddit. Okay, it was actually talked about as part of the ghost training exploit, that look, what you don't want to do if you're ghost training, okay, is you don't want to log in as an alpha, because it will screw with the skill that's currently being trained. So it was talked about from that angle, but it has never been talked about as kind of its own standalone sort of thing, other than a few comments here and there on Reddit.
Yeah. All right. Well, nice job on the article, getting a good reception. Check it out. It's on innimperium.news, and you'll see it up there from Dirk McGurk. All right. That brings us to the end. I want to remind everybody that in a few hours is going to be possibly the most expensive kill in EVE history, and that is a Keep Star in wormhole space that will be attacked by Noobman's Alliance Hard Knocks. So look out for that. That's happening today. And we want to thank Sister Bliss for taking the time to appear on the show and talking about a little bit of initiative history and some of the stuff that they're good at. And it's nice to actually get him on the show finally. All right.
My pleasure. Thanks, Metterall.
Thank you very much. You too, Noobman. So do we have a list of who to thank? I want to thank Wolfglen again for a big tip. That's multiple times he's done that for us and for Open Comms, and it's just a big vote of confidence. We also got an anonymous amount of we have an IS gift from an anonymous player who's a fan of the show, Open Comms and Talking in Stations. They seem to be sister shows, and I want to thank him for a very generous gift. So thank you guys very much. Things may change a little bit, but not much. We're looking into the future of SoundCloud, which is where we're hosted, and we're going to maybe announce some changes on how we host the podcast later on, or whether the podcast continues in the audio form or it just becomes a video on YouTube and Twitch. We don't know yet. So why don't you give us some feedback and let us know. But that's all we have this week. And I want to say thanks to Carneros and Dirk. And again, McLeod for producing the show. Thank the audience for coming. We really love to see 300 people watching this live. It gives us a big boost of confidence, and we like to see your comments and all the information you guys bring to the table as well. Okay, thanks everyone. That's it for this week. We'll see you next week on Talking in Stations.